I live in a cul-de-sac in Colorado Springs, one of those planned neighborhoods where every house looks like it was spat out of the same 3D printer. It's just me here, working IT from my spare bedroom, fixing people's Wi-Fi over Zoom while they complain about their kids trashing the router. I moved here 2 years ago with my ex, Jess, but she left last summer. And now it's me, a fridge full of Red Bull, and a mortgage I can barely afford. The house is fine. 2 stories, beige siding, a backyard that's mostly weeds, but it's too quiet sometimes, especially at night. That's when I started noticing the phone. Not my cell, but the old landline in the kitchen, a relic from the previous owners I never bothered to disconnect. In October 2025, that phone became my nightmare. It all started on a Tuesday night, around 11 p.m. I was troubleshooting a client's server crash, headphones on, Metallica blasting, when I heard it, a faint ring, barely cutting through the music. I yanked off my headphones thinking I'd imagined it. My cell was silent, but the ringing came again, shrill and insistent from the kitchen. The landline's screen was dark, no caller ID, just a dusty handset on the wall. I figured it was a telemarketer. Those still exist somehow, and ignored it. It stopped after 5 rings, and I went back to work. The next night, it rang again. Same time, 11 p.m. sharp. I was on a Reddit thread about retro tech, half laughing at how nobody uses landlines anymore, when it jolted me upright. This time I answered, mostly out of annoyance. "Hello?" I said, expecting a robocall about car warranties. Instead, there was static, thick and crackling, like crumpling tinfoil. Then a voice, low, male, almost bored, said, "Ryan, you forgot to lock the back door." My stomach dropped. I live alone. Nobody knows my name on that line. It's not even in my name, it's under the old owners. I sprinted to the back door, heart pounding. It was locked, deadbolt and all. But the porch light was out, which was weird. It's motion activated. I flicked it on, and the backyard was empty. Just dead grass and a rusted swing set the previous owners left behind. I checked my Ring camera feed on my phone. Nothing but static for the past hour, which had never happened before. I told myself it was a prank, maybe kids messing with me. But my hands were shaking as I double-checked every lock in the house. The calls kept coming, every night at 11 p.m. Always the same voice, always static, always saying something that made my skin crawl. "Ryan, you left dishes in the sink." "Ryan, your bedroom light's still on." "Ryan, you shouldn't sleep with the window open." Each time it was true. I'd find a plate I forgot, a light I left on, a window cracked for air. I started unplugging the phone, but it didn't matter. The next night, it rang anyway, the cord dangling uselessly from the wall. I tried recording the calls on my phone, but all I got was static, no voice, like it knew I was trying to catch it. By Friday, I was a wreck, chugging Red Bull to stay awake, jumping at every creak in the house. I called the phone company, but they said the line was inactive, hadn't been used since 2018. I asked my neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, a nosy retiree who watches the street like a hawk, if she'd seen anyone near my house. She frowned, said no, but mentioned the previous owners, the Thompsons, moved out fast after some trouble. She didn't elaborate, just gave me that pitying look old people give when they think you're in over your head. I dug online, searching the address on X and public records. The Thompsons sold the house in 2018 after living here less than a year. A news article from the Gazette mentioned a fire in the neighborhood that year. Not my house, but the one across the street. A guy named Daniel Thompson, 35, died in it. No photo, just a line about unresolved circumstances. I tried to brush it off, but something didn't sit right. But the name stuck with me. Daniel. The voice on the phone never said its name, but it felt like it knew me, like it had a grudge. Saturday night, I set up my laptop to record the house. Webcam on, Ring camera reset, even an old baby monitor from Jess's stuff pointed at the kitchen. I wasn't sleeping anymore. I just sat on the couch, staring at the landline. At 11 p.m., it rang. I answered, my voice shaking. "What do you want?" I snapped. The static pulsed. Then the voice said, "Look outside, Ryan. I'm waiting." I froze, completely still. The baby monitor crackled, showing the kitchen. And for a split second, I saw it. A shadow by the sink, tall, unmoving. I grabbed a kitchen knife and checked every room. Nothing. The ring footage was static again, and the webcam showed me sitting there, alone. But the shadow was there too, flickering in the corner of the frame. I called the cops, told them someone was stalking me. They came, 2 bored officers who checked the house and found nothing. No footprints, no forced entry. They said the phone thing was probably a prank, maybe a hacked line, and told me to get some sleep. I didn't tell them about the shadow. I didn't want to sound crazy. After they left, I boarded up the back door with plywood, figuring it'd make me feel safer. It didn't. Sunday, I went to the library, desperate for answers. I found a microfiche of the 2018 fire article. Daniel Thompson wasn't just a victim. He'd set the fire, according to rumors. Neighbors said he was paranoid, claimed someone was calling his landline, saying things only he would know. The article didn't say if he died by accident or on purpose, but it mentioned his wife found him in the garage, surrounded by phone cords, muttering about the voice. My blood ran cold. I checked X again, found a post in a local paranormal group. Someone claimed the Thompsons' house, my house, was built over an old utility line, a hub for phone signals that trapped things. I told myself it was bullshit, but I couldn't stop shaking. That night, I didn't wait for the call. I ripped the landline off the wall, smashed it with a hammer, and threw it in the trash. At 11 p.m., my cell rang. An unknown number. I answered, dreading it. "You can't break me, Ryan," the voice said, clear as day, no static this time. "I'm in the walls." I dropped the phone, ran upstairs, and locked myself in my bedroom. The house was silent, but I heard it, a faint hum, like electricity, coming from everywhere. I checked the Ring app, static. The baby monitor was dead. Then my laptop, still recording, flickered, and I saw it on the screen, a figure in my living room, standing where the phone had been, holding the smashed handset. I don't remember grabbing my keys, but I was in my car, peeling out of the driveway. I crashed at a Motel 6, didn't sleep, just stared at my phone, waiting for it to ring. It didn't. The next day, I called a realtor, told her to sell the house. No questions, no explanations. She said it'd take time. But I'm not going back. I'm staying with a buddy now. But last night I got a voicemail, no number, just static. The voice said, "You left me, Ryan, but I'm still here." I checked the Ring footage one last time from my laptop at the motel. It showed my empty house, the kitchen, the smashed phone on the floor. But in the corner, where the shadow had been, was a man, tall, face blurred, holding a phone to his ear. The timestamp was 11 p.m., the exact moment I'd fled. I deleted the app, but now I keep hearing static in my dreams. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see him, waiting in my house, dialing my number. My name's Ellie, and I've been working at Rosie's Diner in Millersburg, Ohio for about a year now. It's one of those places every small town has. A greasy spoon with red vinyl booths, a jukebox that still plays Johnny Cash, and coffee that tastes like it's been brewing since the Reagan administration. The kind of place where truckers swap stories, high school kids share milkshakes after football games, and old-timers argue about the Buckeyes over pie. I'm 19, saving every tip to get out of here and go to college. Millersburg's home, but it's not where I want to stay. Rosie's is open 24 hours, and I pull the graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., because the tips are better when the drunks roll in after the bars close. It's usually quiet, though, just me, the hum of the neon sign, and the occasional rumble of a semi on Route 62. That's how it was supposed to be that night anyway. But something happened in February 2025 that I can't shake, something that makes me question everything I thought I knew about this town. It was a Wednesday, colder than a witch's tit, as my boss Carl would say. Snow was piling up outside, turning the parking lot into a skating rink. The diner was dead, just me and a cook named Javier, who was probably napping in the back. Around 1 a.m., the bell above the door jingled, and I looked up from wiping down the counter. A guy walked in, mid-30s maybe, wearing a Carhartt jacket and a Cavs cap pulled low. Nothing unusual for Rosie's. He slid into a booth by the window, the one with a crack in the vinyl that I'd patched with duct tape. I grabbed a menu and walked over, forcing my customer service smile. "Welcome to Rosie's," I said, setting the menu down. "Coffee to start?" He didn't look up, just nodded. His hands were folded on the table, knuckles rough like he worked construction. I noticed a faint scar running across the back of one hand, shaped like a crescent moon. "Black," he said, voice low, like he was trying not to wake someone. I poured him a cup and left him to the menu. But something about him made my skin prickle. Maybe it was how still he sat, like he was waiting for something specific. I brushed it off. Graveyard shifts make you jumpy. Back at the counter, I busied myself refilling ketchup bottles, but I kept glancing at him. He wasn't reading the menu, just staring out the window into the snow. The streetlights cast long shadows across the lot, and the snowflakes danced like static on an old TV. I checked the security camera feed on the tablet Carl had installed last year, mostly to catch kids stealing fries. The guy showed up clear as day on the grainy screen, sitting alone, his reflection in the window looking off, like it wasn't quite synced with him. I blinked, and it was normal again. Probably just the cheap camera, I told myself. He ordered a burger and fries, nothing fancy, and ate in silence. Didn't touch his phone, didn't make small talk, just ate with this slow, deliberate focus. When he finished, he pushed the plate away and said, "You're Ellie Harper, right?" My stomach did a little flip. I'm used to regulars knowing my name tag's right there. But his tone was different, like he knew more than he should. "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice light. "You from around here?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Used to be. Knew your mom back in the day. Sarah, right? She still live over on Maple?" My heart skipped. Mom's been gone 3 years. Car accident on the interstate. Most folks in Millersburg know that. It was big news in a town this small. But this guy didn't seem like a local, not with that vague "used to be" line. I forced a laugh. "You must be thinking of someone else. My mom passed a while back." His smile faded, but he didn't look surprised. "Sorry to hear that," he said, eyes locked on mine. "Must be tough, being out here all alone." The way he said "alone" made my skin crawl, like he was testing me. I mumbled something about getting his check and hightailed it to the counter. Javier was out back, so it was just me and this guy in the diner, the jukebox silent, the hum of the fridge louder than it should have been. I printed his check, $12.47, and dropped it off, avoiding eye contact. He paid in cash, left a crisp $20, and said, "Keep the change." Then he leaned in, close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. "Be careful, Ellie. Not everyone who comes in here is what they seem." Before I could respond, he was out the door, his boots crunching in the snow. I watched him cross the lot, expecting him to climb into a truck or something, but he just vanished into the dark like the snow swallowed him whole. I locked the door behind him, heart pounding. The diner felt too big all of a sudden, the windows too exposed. I checked the camera feed again, rewinding to when he left. The footage showed him sitting in the booth, eating, then getting up. But it cut out the second he reached the door. Just static, then the empty lot. I told myself it was a glitch, but my hands were shaking as I texted Javier to come out front. He grumbled but didn't ask questions, just started flipping pancakes like nothing was wrong. The rest of the shift was uneventful. But I couldn't shake the guy's words. Not everyone is what they seem. What the hell did that mean? I figured he was just some weirdo trying to mess with me. Maybe a drifter passing through. Millersburg's safe. Always has been. But when I got home at 6 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that crescent scar, hearing his voice say my mom's name. The next night, I was back at Rosie's, trying to act normal. The diner was busier. Some truckers, a couple of teens sneaking beers. But I kept checking the door, half expecting that guy to walk in again. Around midnight, the jukebox started playing on its own. Not Johnny Cash, but some old song I didn't recognize, all warbly and distorted like it was coming from underwater. I unplugged it, thinking the wiring was shot, but the music kept going for a good 10 seconds after. Javier laughed it off, said the place was cursed, but I wasn't in the mood for jokes. Then the phone rang, the landline behind the counter, the one we only use for takeout orders. I picked it up, expecting a drunk wanting wings. Instead, there was static, thick and crackling, like the radio in my old Civic when it lost signal. Then a voice. His voice. The guy from last night. "Ellie," he said. Check the booth. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mouth dry. Javier was in the kitchen, humming to himself. I walked to the booth where the guy had sat, the one by the window. There was nothing there, no receipt, no crumbs, nothing. But when I looked closer, the duct tape over the cracked vinyl was peeling, and underneath, carved into the seat, was my name, Ellie Harper. Not fresh, but old, like it had been there for years, the wood worn smooth around it. I backed away, heart hammering, and called Carl, who was probably asleep. He didn't pick up. I checked the security footage next, my hands clumsy on the tablet. The feed from last night was still glitched, static where the guy left, but I scrubbed through tonight's footage, hoping for something normal. Instead, I saw myself at the counter, alone, when the jukebox started. But in the corner of the frame, in that booth, there was a shadow. Not a person, just a shape, sitting where he'd been. It flickered, then vanished when I walked over on the footage. I rewound and watched again. Same thing. My knees felt weak. I told Javier I was sick and closed up early, something I'd never done. Driving home, I kept checking my rear view, half expecting to see that guy in my back seat. My apartment's above a laundromat, nothing fancy. But it's mine. I locked the door, checked the windows, and sat on my couch, scrolling X to calm down. That's when I saw it. A post from a Millersburg group, some old-timer reminiscing about Rosie's. He'd uploaded a photo from the 80s, the diner packed with locals. In the background, in that same booth, was a man in a Carhartt jacket, calves cap pulled low, crescent scar on his hand. The caption didn't name him, just called him a regular back in the day. I dropped my phone. That was impossible. The guy last night looked 30, maybe 35. No way he was in a photo from 40 years ago, looking exactly the same. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was his dad, or just a coincidence. But the scar, the way he knew my mom's name, the carving, it didn't add up. I called my aunt, Mom's sister, waking her up at 3 a.m. I asked if she knew anyone from Rosie's back in the day, someone with a scar like that. She went quiet, then said, "Ellie, don't go digging. Some things about this town are better left alone." That pissed me off. "What things?" I pressed. She sighed, said there was a guy, Tom or Tim, who hung around Rosie's in the 80s. A loner, worked odd jobs, always sat in that booth. He'd been sweet on my mom, but she didn't reciprocate. Then he disappeared after a fire at the diner in 87. Nobody knew if he died or left town. The diner was rebuilt, same booth and all, but folks swore it was haunted after that. "Just stories," she said, but her voice shook. I didn't sleep. The next day I went to the library, digging through old newspapers on microfiche. I found an article from 87 about the fire. Started in the kitchen, ruled accidental, no casualties. But there was a grainy photo of the damage, and in the corner, barely visible, was that booth. The vinyl was scorched, but the carving was there, Ellie Harper. My name, in a photo taken a decade before I was born. I started questioning everything. Had Mom known about this? Was that why she never let me work at Rosie's when I was younger? I called in sick for my next shift, then the one after that. Carl was mad, but I didn't care. I couldn't go back, not after finding a note slipped under my apartment door 2 days later. No envelope, just a piece of receipt paper from Rosie's with that same handwriting from the booth. "You can't leave, Ellie. You're part of this now." I went to the police, showed them the note, told them about the guy, the carving, everything. They humored me, checked the diner, found nothing. The security footage from that week was corrupted, they said. They suggested I was stressed, maybe imagining things. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went to Rosie's during the day when it was packed to confront Carl. He looked at the note, went pale, and said he'd never seen that handwriting. But I caught him glancing at the booth like he knew something. That night, I did something stupid. I went back to Rosie's, alone after closing. I had to know. I brought a flashlight, a pocket knife, and my phone to record everything. The diner was dark, the neon sign off, the lot empty. I used my key to get in, the bell jingling like a warning. The air felt heavy, like the diner was holding its breath. I went straight to the booth, shining my light on the carving. It was still there, but now there was more. Sarah knew. My mom's name carved fresh, the wood shavings still on the seat. I heard a creak behind me, like someone stepping on the old floorboards. I spun around, flashlight sweeping the room. Nothing. But the jukebox flickered on, playing that same distorted song. I backed toward the door, my phone recording, when the landline rang. I didn't want to answer, but my feet moved like they weren't mine. I picked it up, and it was him. "Ellie," he said, "you were always meant to be here, just like her." I dropped the phone and ran, not stopping until I was in my car, peeling out of the lot. I didn't look back. I moved out of Millersburg a week later, crashing with a friend in Columbus. I haven't been back to Rosie's, but I still get texts from unknown numbers, always at 1 a.m., always the same message. "Come back, Ellie." I block them, but they keep coming. Last week I got a package, no return address. Inside was a photo of that booth, taken at night with me sitting in it. I don't remember ever sitting there. I've been digging online, trying to find answers. There's a thread on X about Rosie's, buried in some Ohio ghost story group. People say the diner's cursed, tied to that fire in '87. One user claimed the booth was built from wood, salvaged from an old church that burned down in the '70s, a place where something bad happened. They didn't elaborate. I don't know if it's true, but I keep thinking about what my aunt said about things better left alone. I want to believe it's just a prank, that I'm not losing my mind. But last night, I woke up to the smell of coffee and cigarette smoke, and my kitchen table had a new scratch, a crescent moon carved deep. I'm Caleb, a mechanic from Des Moines. I fix cars, raise my 6-year-old son, Ethan, and try not to think about the past. But in November 2025, I took Ethan back to my dad's farmhouse in Boone, Iowa for Thanksgiving, hoping to mend things. I hadn't been home since I was 12, not since Mom disappeared one night, leaving nothing but a half-packed suitcase. Dad turned to bourbon, I turned to trouble, and we hadn't spoken in years. Ethan deserved a grandpa, though, so I loaded my Dodge Ram, cranked up Springsteen, and drove through cornfields that stretched forever under a bruised November sky. I didn't know I was driving us into hell. The farmhouse was a wreck, sagging porch, chipped paint, a weather vane screeching in the wind. The cornfields around it were dead, stalks crackling softly, like bones breaking in the cold. Dad looked older than 60, his face carved with lines, eyes darting like he still expected Mom to walk through the door. Ethan, all energy and questions, ran to the yard, clutching his sketchbook. "The scarecrow's cool, Dad," he said, sketching its burlap face, stitched into a crooked grin. I nodded, but that thing, its empty eyes, tattered flannel, made my skin crawl. Thanksgiving dinner was a disaster. Dad overcooked the turkey, so we ate instant mashed potatoes and canned corn, the silence broken only by Ethan's chatter about his drawings. After, Dad sat on the porch, staring at the fields, while I put Ethan to bed in my old room. The wall still had my Nirvana posters, faded and curling. Ethan showed me his sketch, the scarecrow. But its face was too human, eyes too big, mouth twisted into a scream. "He talks to me," Ethan whispered. I laughed it off, said it was just a creepy drawing, but my chest tightened. Kids imagine things, right? That night, I couldn't sleep. The house groaned, old bones shifting in the dark, the wind rattling windows, and I kept thinking about Mom. She'd vanished after a fight with Dad, no note, no trace. The sheriff called it a runaway case, but I never believed it. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps downstairs, slow, deliberate, like boots on hardwood. I grabbed the baseball bat by my bed, heart pounding, and crept to the stairs. The living room was empty, but the front door was open, swinging in the wind. I know I'd locked it. Outside, the scarecrow loomed in the yard, its head tilted like it was watching me. I slammed the door, locked it, and checked on Ethan. He was asleep, sketchbook open to another drawing. The scarecrow, but now it had my face. Morning came, gray and heavy. Ethan was quiet, scribbling more drawings. Cornfields, a figure with no face, hands reaching from the stalks. I asked Dad if he'd heard anything last night. He shrugged, said the house was old, but his eyes avoided mine. I drove to town, needing air, and stopped at the diner where Mom used to work. Old-timers there remembered her, said she'd been scared before she vanished, always looking over her shoulder. One guy, nursing a coffee, muttered about the fields, how they take what they want. I rolled my eyes, small-town ghost stories, but his words stuck. Back at the farm, Ethan was worse. He wouldn't eat, just sat in the yard, staring at the corn. "He's out there, Dad," he said, pointing. I saw nothing but stalks, swaying like they were breathing. I checked my phone, hoping to distract him, and found a notification from my truck's dash cam, which I'd left running. The footage was time-stamped 2:17 a.m., showing the yard. The scarecrow was gone, just an empty pole. Then, in the corner, a figure, tall burlap face moving toward the house. The feed cut to static. My hand shook as I deleted it, telling myself it was a glitch. That night, Ethan woke screaming, saying the scarecrow was at his window. I ran to his room, bat in hand, but the window was locked, the fields empty. Ethan sobbed, clutching a new drawing. Me, standing in the corn, my eyes blacked out. "He says you're next," he whispered. I held him, heart racing, and noticed dirt on his hands, like he'd been digging. I checked outside, fresh footprints in the mud, leading to the fields. Not kid-sized, adult. I confronted Dad, demanded answers about Mom. He broke down, admitted they'd fought that night. She'd seen something in the fields, said it called her name. He thought she was crazy, told her to leave. She did, but never came back. He swore he'd seen nothing since, but his hands trembled, and I saw it. A scar on his wrist, like a burn shaped like a cornstalk. I didn't ask. I couldn't. I didn't want to know. By Saturday, I was unraveling. Ethan wouldn't leave his room, just drew the same figure. Burlap face, my eyes. I called the sheriff, but he laughed off my story, said kids get spooked on farms. I checked X, found a local thread about Boone's Fields. Posts claimed the land was cursed, tied to a 19th century farmer who burned his crops and himself after losing his family. They said the fields remembered, took people who stayed too long. I shut my phone off. But the house felt wrong, like the air was thick with something unseen, the walls listening. That night, I boarded the windows, locked every door, and kept Ethan close. At midnight, the power cut out. No storm, no warning, just black, just darkness. My flashlight caught Ethan's face, pale, eyes wide. "He's here," he whispered. I heard it then, a rustling like cornstalks moving, but inside the house. I grabbed Ethan and the bat, backing toward the kitchen. The phone rang, an old rotary on the counter I hadn't noticed before. I answered, dreading it. Static, then a voice. Hers. Mom's. "Caleb, run," she said, choking like she was underwater. The line died. The rustling grew louder, coming from the basement. I carried Ethan, ran for the truck, but the keys were gone. The front door rattled, like something heavy was pushing it. I barricaded us in my room, shoving a dresser against the door. Ethan was crying, saying, "He's mad because you left." I didn't ask. I couldn't. Who? I knew. The air smelled like ash and dirt, and scratches came from the walls, slow, deliberate, like nails on wood. I don't know how long we sat there, Ethan trembling in my arms. The scratching stopped, and I heard footsteps, heavy, uneven, outside the door. My flashlight flickered, and in its last glow, I saw Ethan's latest drawing on the floor. The scarecrow, wearing my face, holding Mom's hand. Her eyes were gone. I screamed, raw, loud, dropped the flashlight, and the door shook, wood splintering. Then, silence. At dawn, the power returned. The door was intact, no scratches, no footprints. Ethan was asleep, no memory of the night. I packed up fast, no goodbyes, drove to Des Moines, and never looked back. I sold the truck, burned Ethan's drawings, but I still hear the rustling some nights, like corn moving in my apartment. Last week I found a photo in my toolbox, me, Ethan, and that scarecrow standing in the field. I never took it. Ethan doesn't draw anymore, but he hums a tune Mom used to sing, and sometimes when I check on him at night I see dirt on his hands. I still don't know what lives in those fields, or why it wants me, but I feel it, watching, waiting for me to come back. And I'm terrified it already has Ethan.